The Council's decision. The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast and cold. It was shaped like a circle, with rows of curved seats rising higher and higher around the center. In the middle stood the speaker's platform, a tall, glowing disk where the leader of the council always spoke. Above, the ceiling was made of transparent crystal, showing the stars outside. They looked peaceful, but inside the chamber, there was no peace. Representatives from dozens of alien races filled the seats. Their voices were low at first, but soon the room filled with whispers and arguments in many different languages. Some voices hissed, others growled, and a few were deep and booming. The topic was the same for all: humanity. The speaker, a tall, silver-skinned alien named Vorith, raised one thin hand. His voice echoed across the chamber. Council members, the matter of humanity has reached a critical point. We must decide their future today. A hush fell over the room. Every delegate leaned forward. Vorith's large black eyes scanned the crowd. For too long, humans have acted without control. They spread quickly across the stars. They ignore our rules. They take what they want, and they arm themselves with dangerous weapons. A green-scaled delegate from the Karashak Empire slammed his clawed hand on the desk. They are unpredictable. One human ship destroyed 3 of my patrols last year. They call it self-defense. I call it war. Another alien, tall and bird-like, tilted her head sharply. If they keep growing at this speed, they will be stronger than all of us combined in less than 50 cycles. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uneasy. From one of the upper seats, a soft but firm voice spoke. And yet, said Ambassador Sari of the Lanari, humans are also valuable. They are brave. They are clever. They have done nothing that other young civilizations have not done in their rise. To punish them now is... Vorith cut her off. Enough, Ambassador. You know as well as I do, they cannot be trusted. Every year they push the limits. Every year they test our patience. Another voice joined in, this one deep and rumbling. We should control them before it's too late. Control? Sari's voice rose. You mean enslave. Call it what you want. Vorith replied coldly. The Council cannot allow a species so dangerous to act freely. They must obey, or be removed. The word removed hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew what it meant. The Council had removed other species before, entire civilizations that vanished from the stars, never to be seen again. One by one, the delegates spoke, some with anger, some with fear. Stories were told of humans refusing to pay tribute, humans breaking council laws, humans winning battles they were not meant to win. Each tale painted Earth's children as rebels who needed to be broken. Ambassador Sari stood again. If you do this, you will push them into war. Humanity will not submit quietly. And if that happens, she paused, choosing her words. You will regret it. Vorith's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It is a warning, she said. The speaker leaned forward, his voice sharp as a blade. Then let it be heard. The time for warnings is over. The chamber grew tense as a large display rose from the center of the floor. Holographic images of Earth's colonies appeared. Mars, Titan, the belt stations, the outer settlements. Around each one, small red circles began to form. They represented the Council's blockade fleet. Vorith's voice was calm, but cold. The vote will decide. Shall the Galactic Council impose full sanctions and military control over humanity? One by one, lights began to glow on each delegate's desk. Green for yes, red for no. Ambassador Sari's red light glowed alone at first. A few others joined her. But soon, the chamber filled with green. Vorith looked at the results. The vote is passed. Sanctions will begin immediately. All trade is to be cut. All human fleets are to be disarmed. All colonies will be under council supervision. He paused, letting the decision settle like dust after a battle. And if they resist, his voice grew colder. We will remove them. The room erupted with noise, cheers from some, angry shouts from others. Sari stood frozen, her hands gripping the edge of her desk. As the meeting ended, Vorith turned to one of his aides. His voice was quiet but full of satisfaction. "Prepare the fleets. Make sure they know we are not afraid of their fire." From the shadows at the back of the chamber, a small, hooded figure slipped away unnoticed. They had heard everything, and somewhere, far from the council's shining halls, a message was already on its way to Earth. "They have made their move. Be ready." First signs. It began quietly. No alarms. No sirens. No public warnings. Just silence. The cargo ship Silver Dawn was the first to vanish. It was returning from the mining colonies in the belt, carrying food, medicine, and water recyclers for the outer settlements. The crew sent one last transmission as they passed near the edge of Saturn's orbit. Then nothing. No distress call. No signal.
Gone.
A week later, the Morning Star, a civilian transport carrying over 300 passengers, failed to arrive at Mars. Families waited at the docking bays for hours before the station authorities admitted the truth. The ship had disappeared. At first, people believed it was pirates. The belt always had its share of desperate scavengers. But the pirates never left no trace. These ships were erased completely, as if they had been swallowed by the void. In the military command center of Mars Orbital Station, Captain Elias Reyes stood over a flickering holomap. His dark eyes followed a red blinking marker, the location where Morning Star had last been detected. It was close to one of the outer council patrol routes. "Too close. Run it again," Reyes ordered. His officer replayed the sensor logs. The same thing appeared, a faint shadow on the radar, far larger than any pirate vessel, moving with deliberate speed. "That's a council warship," Reyes said. His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. "And it's hunting." The officer swallowed hard. "Sir, if that's true, this is an act of war." Reyes didn't answer. He knew it was true, but proving it would be another matter. In the cities of Mars, strange new rules appeared overnight. Council security ships docked in the harbors, their cold metal hulls gleaming under the red sun. Council soldiers, tall, armored aliens with glowing visors, marched through the streets, scanning faces, checking IDs, and inspecting cargo. Trade began to slow. Food prices doubled. The smaller colonies, dependent on shipments from Earth, started to run out of supplies. People whispered about rationing. Some whispered about rebellion. But the most troubling news came from Earth itself. A fleet of council ships appeared in high orbit, claiming they were there for peacekeeping. No one believed it. Ambassador Sari's private channels to human leaders went dark. Her last message had been short and urgent. "They will not stop. Prepare yourselves." On a lonely mining station near the rings of Saturn, engineer Jonah Pike was repairing a damaged airlock when he saw something strange in the distance. A dark shape, larger than any civilian ship, drifting silently just beyond the ring's edge. It was so still it almost looked dead. But then, lights flickered along its hull, and a faint blue glow hummed from its engines. Jonah knew that design. It was council military. He reached for his comms, but before he could speak, every light in the station flickered out. Total blackout. The hum of life support died, leaving only the sound of his own breathing inside his suit. In the dark, he saw the warship slowly turning toward the station. Meanwhile, on Mars Orbital Station, Reyes received a scrambled transmission, Jonah's emergency beacon. The message was fragmented, filled with static, but one phrase cut through clearly. "They're here, it's not a blockade, it's a trap." Then silence. Reyes turned to his second-in-command. "Get me every ship we can fly.
Now."
"Sir, with respect, against a council fleet? That's suicide." Reyes didn't look away from the map. "It's suicide if we sit and wait, too." The next day, the news reached Earth. The Council had officially declared new trade restrictions on humanity. They claimed it was to prevent the spread of unstable military technology. In truth, it was a stranglehold. No ships in or out without Council inspection. No cargo without permission. No colony safe. But what the Council didn't understand, what they had never understood, was that humanity had survived worse. And humanity did not surrender. Far away, in hidden hangars carved into asteroids and moons, old warships began to wake. Dust shook from their hulls. Engines that had been cold for decades roared to life. Pilots who had sworn they were done fighting strapped on their helmets again. Captain Reyes looked at the stars beyond Mars and whispered to himself, "If they want to fight, they'll get one." Somewhere deep in Council space, Vorath received the first reports of human resistance. His expression did not change. But in his mind, a single thought lingered. They are moving faster than expected. The line is crossed. The first riots broke out on Titan. It started with a single shipment, 20 containers of grain bound for the colony, seized by the Council's patrol. When the food didn't arrive, families gathered outside the distribution centers. They were hungry, desperate, demanding answers. Council enforcers stood in the streets with their black armor and glowing visors, blocking the doors. They claimed the food was being inspected for dangerous contraband. But the colonists knew the truth. It would never arrive. When a child collapsed from hunger, the crowd surged forward. The enforcers raised their weapons. No warning shots. Just blinding flashes and screams. The smell of burning air filled the square. By the time the riot ended, 20 people were dead. On Earth, the images spread like fire. Titan streets littered with bodies. Council ships hovering above the colony like vultures. The Council's statement was cold and precise. Order was maintained. The sanctions will continue. In the war room beneath Geneva, Earth's leaders watched in silence. Generals and diplomats sat at the long steel table. Every face was hard. "This is no longer about trade," said General Masaki, his voice low. "This is a siege." President Hale leaned forward, hands clasped. "What about Mars? Any change?" A colonel spoke up. "Worse, sir. The blockades tightened. No ship can leave without being scanned. They're confiscating supplies." And he hesitated. "They've taken control of our orbital defenses. The crews have been forced out." The room went cold. Orbital defenses were humanity's shield. Without them, Earth was naked. On Mars' orbital station, Captain Reyes watched the Council's flagship through the viewing glass. It was massive, shaped like a spearhead, its hull covered in alien symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. It hung over Mars like a silent predator, surrounded by smaller escort ships. "They're not here to keep peace," Reyes said quietly to his second-in-command. "They're here to choke us." As he spoke, an urgent comms alert came through. It was from a mining station in the belt, the same one Jonah Pike had worked at. The voice on the other end was panicked. "They're clearing the station. Not just soldiers, machines. Drones tearing through the halls. Anyone who resists is gone." Static swallowed the rest. The next day, the Council sent its ultimatum. It came as a broadcast, beamed to every colony, every station, every city on Earth. Vorath's image appeared, tall, silver-skinned, his black eyes cold as stone. His voice was calm, almost polite. "Humans of Earth, the Council has judged your recent actions as dangerous to the peace of our galaxy. You have spread your influence too far, too fast. You have ignored the laws that govern civilized space. You will now dismantle all military fleets. You will hand over all advanced weapons to Council control. Your orbital stations will be occupied by our peacekeeping forces. Comply, and you will be spared. Refuse, and you will be removed." The message ended. There was no countdown, no chance to negotiate. Just silence. On the outer colonies, people whispered about what removed meant. Everyone knew the stories, civilizations that had defied the Council and vanished from history. Planets turned to glass. Moons stripped of life. Names erased from the records. On Earth, President Hale stood before the world in a live address. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. "They have crossed the line. This is no longer about control. This is about survival. We will not disarm. We will not kneel." That night, Ambassador Sari sent one last encrypted message from deep within Council space. It was short, almost a whisper. "I tried to stop them. They would not listen. They will strike soon. Be ready." Hours later, Her transport ship was found drifting in deep space. No crew. No survivors. Captain Reyes was in the hangar when the news reached Mars. He stared at the display showing Sari's destroyed ship. Around him, engineers worked on old warcraft, their hands moving faster now, their eyes hard with resolve. "They think we'll bow down," Reyes said. "They've forgotten who we are." In the far corner of the hangar, under a tarp, something large was taking shape, a sharp, angular vessel bristling with weapon ports. The first of the Starfire fleet. Humanity's answer. Somewhere in the deep void between the stars, the Council's fleets were already on the move. Their engines glowed faint blue against the darkness, their formation tight and merciless. And far away, unseen, 100 human ships powered up in the shadows, their lights winking like angry stars. The line had been crossed. The war had begun. Humanity unites. The meeting place was not on Earth. It was not on Mars. It was in a place the Council had forgotten. A hollowed-out asteroid deep in Jupiter's shadow, shielded from every scanner and every patrol. The asteroid had no name, only a code. Haven 7. Once it had been a mining hub. Now, its tunnels were silent except for the distant hum of hidden reactors. Only a select few knew it still existed. Tonight, it would become the most important place in human history. Inside the largest chamber, a long steel table had been placed beneath the glow of portable lights. Around it sat the people the Council feared most, not because they were the most powerful, but because they were the most dangerous when united. General Masaki of Earth's Defense Command, Governor Lena Voss of Mars, Captain Elias Reyes of the Belt Fleets, Admiral Chun from the Titan shipyards, Colonel Asher, leader of the Lunar Guard, and dozens more, leaders from colonies, mining outposts, and old war veterans who had sworn never to fight again until now. Governor Voss spoke first, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The Council's blockade has cut us off. They've taken our defenses. They've starved our colonies. If we do nothing, they will erase us. We either fight or we die." There was no argument. Everyone knew the truth. The Council had left no middle ground. General Masaki leaned forward. "We've all heard the ultimatum. They want our fleets dismantled. They want our weapons. They want us weak. And once we are weak, they will come for the kill." He turned to Reyes. "You've seen their patrols. Tell them what's coming." Reyes stood, his hands resting on the table. "They're building up forces in 3 sectors. Armadas. Not patrol fleets, war fleets. I've seen them. They're waiting for the order. When they move, it won't be to scare us. It'll be to burn us out of existence." A heavy silence followed. Then, Admiral Chin tapped a control on her wrist pad. A section of the chamber wall lit up, revealing a massive projection. It was a ship, angular, black, and bristling with weapon ports. Sleek and deadly, unlike anything the Council had seen before. "This," Chin said, "is Project Starfire." The design was unlike standard human warships. The armor was layered with stealth plating. The engines were built for short, explosive bursts, perfect for hit-and-run attacks. And the weapons were not just railguns and missiles. At its core, the ship carried a solar lance, a weapon that could channel and focus the power of a star. "We've been building them in secret," Chin continued. "Not on one planet. Not in one shipyard. Each part is built in a different place and smuggled to hidden assembly points. Even if the Council knew we were building something, they'd never find them all." Colonel Asher smirked. "So we hit them with this and they scatter?" "No," Reyes said, his tone firm. "We hit them with this and they bleed." One by one, the leaders spoke, planning in low, tense voices. Smuggling routes were mapped. Safe harbors were marked in deep space. Code phrases were chosen for communication. Every captain, every soldier, every pilot who still had a ship would be called. The plan was dangerous. It would mean striking the Council first, breaking their fleets before they could surround Earth completely. Humanity would have to move fast, strike hard, and never let the enemy regroup. When the meeting ended, Governor Voss looked around the table. "We stand together," she said. "No more borders. No more colonies. From Earth to the outer edge, we are one people now. Humanity is united. The others repeated the words. It was not ceremony, it was a promise. Outside the chamber, in the hidden hangars of Haven 7, the first Starfire ships were waking. Engineers moved like ghosts among them, tightening bolts, checking power cores, loading weapons. The ships were still unfinished, but they looked alive, predators waiting for release. In the farthest corner under heavy shielding was Starfire 1, the flagship. Reyes stood beneath it, running his hand along the cool metal of its hull. They have the numbers, he whispered to himself. We have the fire. Somewhere beyond Jupiter's shadow, the Council fleets were still moving into position. Their admirals believed humanity would break under the blockade. They believed the colonies would turn on each other for scraps. They were wrong, because now humanity was no longer a scattered people. They were a single blade, hidden in the dark. And soon, that blade would strike. The first strike. The order came in silence. No speeches. No broadcasts. No grand declarations. Just a single coded phrase sent through secure channels. Ignite the fire. Captain Elias Reyes sat in the command chair of Starfire 1. The bridge was dim, lit only by the soft glow of consoles. Around him, his crew moved with quiet precision. There was no nervous chatter, no jokes, only the heavy focus of people who knew what they were about to do could change everything. The target was the blockade near Saturn, a massive council formation led by the dreadnought Valerian. 30 warships, hundreds of fighters, enough firepower to crush an entire fleet. But Reyes wasn't here to crush. He was here to break the blockade, create a hole wide enough for supply convoys to pass through, and send the Council a message. Humanity fights back. Status. Reyes asked. Engines running hot. Weapons primed, his weapons officer replied. Solar Lance is charging. Reyes nodded. Good. Keep her hidden until I say otherwise. Out in the void, the Starfire fleet moved like shadows. 20 ships in total, each one built for speed and surprise. They hugged the rings of Saturn, using the icy debris as cover. From a distance, they were just more rocks drifting in space. The Council fleet didn't see them. Not yet. Inside the Valerian, Admiral Tkar stood in the command pit, his reptilian eyes scanning the sensor displays. The blockade had been quiet for days. Too quiet. Status of the human colonies? He asked. All communications under control, Admiral. No sign of movement. Tkar's mouth curled in a slow smile. They are learning their place. A voice cut through from the sensor station. Admiral, I have faint readings in the rings. Rocks, Tkar said dismissively. No, sir, rocks moving against the orbit path. The first strike came, without warning. From the shadow of the rings, the Starfire ships erupted into the open, their engines blazing bright. In a single, coordinated maneuver, they fanned out and unleashed a storm of fire. Railgun rounds tore through the void. Missiles screamed toward the blockade. 2 Council frigates went dark instantly, their hulls split open. Another spun out of formation, trailing burning debris. On the Valerian, alarms wailed. Multiple contacts. Human vessels. They're by the stars. They're inside the blockade. Reyes kept his voice calm. All ships, target the escorts first. Break their line. The Starfire fleet moved like wolves, striking fast and vanishing into the cover of the rings, then emerging from another angle to hit again. Council ships tried to return fire, but they were too slow, too heavy, built for intimidation, not speed. Lance charged, the weapons officer reported. Reyes' eyes locked on the dreadnought in the distance. Fire. The Starfire 1's forward array unfolded, glowing with captured light. A beam of pure, focused energy, bright as a newborn sun, lanced across the void. It tore through the Valorian shields as if they weren't there, cutting deep into the dreadnought's core. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but the flash lit the rings of Saturn like a star-going nova. On every channel, Council crews screamed for help. The battle raged for 20 minutes. When it ended, 10 Council ships were gone. The rest were fleeing, their formation shattered. The blockade was broken. But humanity's victory came at a cost. 3 Starfire ships were lost, their crews gone. Reyes watched the debris drift among the rings, his jaw set. "Recover what we can," he ordered. "We'll honor them later. Right now, we have to move." The news spread faster than light. Across the colonies, people cheered. On Earth, citizens flooded the streets in defiance. On Titan, the starving families received their first supply drop in months. In the council chambers, Vorth stood before the holographic image of the burning Valerian. His black eyes were calm, but his voice was like ice. "They have chosen war," he said. "Then war is what they will have." Far beyond the stars, fleets began to gather. The galaxy had heard humanity's answer, and it was made of fire. The final warning. The galaxy had gone silent. No trade ships in the lanes. No friendly chatter on the long-range channels. Only the echo of fear. The destruction of the Valerian had ripped through the political order like a shockwave. For the first time in living memory, the Galactic Council had lost a dreadnought, not to another great empire, but to a species they considered young, reckless, and unworthy. But the Council's pride was a dangerous thing, and wounded pride always bled into rage. 3 weeks after the battle at Saturn, fleets were on the move. Not one fleet. Not 2. 5. Each the size of a small nation's military. They burned across the void in tight formations, their paths converging on Earth and the human colonies. Every ship carried thousands of troops. Every carrier was filled with fighters. And at the center of each armada was a flagship, massive, heavily armed, and ready to crush anything in its path. In the war room of Haven 7, the air was tense. The table was covered in holographic star maps, each one lit with swarms of red markers. "They're not just coming for Earth," Admiral Chen said, her voice hard. "They're coming for everything."
Mars. 10.
The belt. Every outpost. "They're going to burn us out of history." Captain Reyes studied the projections. "How long until they reach us?" 2 weeks, General Masaki replied. "If we wait for them to hit Earth, we lose. The only chance we have is to strike them before they're in range." Governor Lena Voss leaned forward. "If we attack now, we'll be fighting 5 fleets at once. The Council will expect us to stand and defend. They won't expect us to move first." Chen nodded slowly. "We split the Starfire fleet. Hit them from the shadows. Force them to divide. They can't bring their full strength to bear if they're chasing us." As the meeting went on, the tension in the room thickened. It wasn't just about tactics. This was about survival. If they lost, humanity wouldn't just be defeated, they'd be erased. Finally, President Hale spoke. His face appeared on the secure hololink from Earth. "I will address the galaxy," he said. "If they want to think of us as savages, then let them see what savages can do when pushed to the wall." The broadcast went out 2 days later. Every ship, every colony, every station in Council space received it. President Hale stood in a plain command room. No flags, no symbols, no background music, just his voice, cold and steady. "People of the galaxy, you know what the Council has done to us. You've seen the blockades. You've heard the ultimatums. You've watched them starve our children and burn our homes. We did not start this war. But if the Council believes we will end it on our knees, they are wrong. We will fight. We will strike. And if they come for us, they will not return. This is our final warning. Stand down or face the fire." The Council's response came within hours. Vorth himself appeared in a live transmission to every sector. His silver skin gleamed under the Council chamber lights, and his black eyes betrayed no emotion. "Humanity," he said, "has spoken its last defiance. You will be silenced. The galaxy will know peace once you are gone." The broadcast ended without ceremony. The fleets did not slow. In the shadow of Neptune, the Starfire fleet gathered. 28 ships, armed and ready. The solar lances were fully charged. Supplies had been stripped from every colony to keep the fleet fed and fueled. The crews were tired, but their eyes were sharp. Reyes stood on the bridge of Starfire 1, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there, 5 armadas were closing in. Somewhere out there, humanity's future was being written. His second-in-command approached quietly. "Orders, Captain?" Reyes didn't look away from the viewport. "Signal the fleet," he said. "It's time to send them our answer." Engines flared in the dark. The Starfire fleet vanished into the void, heading straight for the oncoming storm. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's warnings were never empty. The fire spreads. War did not come in one great battle. It came in flashes, sudden, violent, and everywhere at once. In the first week, the Starfire fleet struck 3 separate Council armadas in deep space. They didn't fight in formation like the Council. They hit hard, disappeared into asteroid fields, and reappeared light years away to strike again. At the Battle of Ariath Gate, 2 Starfire ships disabled an entire convoy without destroying it, forcing the Council to waste precious hours rescuing their own. At Vega, 4, humanity's fighters lured a pursuing fleet into the gravity well of a gas giant, where 3 Council cruisers were torn apart by the planet's storms. The Council had expected humanity to fight like prey. Instead, they were fighting like predators. In the Grand Chamber of the Council, chaos reigned. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices full of panic. Reports came in by the hour, colonies rebelling, shipping lanes under attack, planetary garrisons overrun. A representative from the Zori Syndicate slammed his clawed hand on the table. They were supposed to be contained. How are they everywhere at once? Vortha's voice cut through the noise.
Calm.
Measured.
Deadly.
They are not everywhere. They are simply where we are weakest, which means we must give them no weak points to strike. But deep down, even Vorth knew the truth. Humanity's speed, creativity, and defiance were unlike anything the Council had faced in centuries. On the front lines, Captain Reyes was living in the fire. The Starfire 1 had not returned to port in over a month. Its hull was scarred, its engines pushed to their limits, but it still moved like a phantom. Reyes and his fleet never stayed in one place long enough for the Council to trap them. In the orbit of the icy moon Caltron 9, a Council carrier was refueling when the Starfire fleet appeared out of nowhere. Before the carrier's shields could rise, 2 solar lances cut through its armor, setting off a chain reaction in its fuel tanks. The explosion lit the frozen surface below like a false sunrise. The surviving Council escorts fled without firing a shot. But it wasn't just the Starfire fleet striking now. Human colonies that had once lived under Council control were rising in rebellion. On the mining world of Drava, workers turned their heavy drills into weapons and drove the garrison off-world. On the moons of Yaris, smugglers became freedom fighters, raiding Council supply depots and smuggling arms to other colonies. The fire was spreading, and it was burning faster than anyone predicted. In the war councils of Haven 7, the victories brought both hope and dread. Admiral Chen stood over the holomap, her finger tracing the expanding circle of red markers. "They're overextended," she said. "For the first time in centuries, the Council can't keep up. But the more we push them, the harder they'll hit back." General Masaki nodded grimly. "They haven't shown us their full hand yet. When they do, we'll see just how far they're willing to go." And they did. 2 weeks later, the Council unleashed the weapon they had been holding in reserve, the Purge fleets. These were not meant for battle. They were meant for destruction. Planetary burners, atmosphere shredders, and weapons that could sterilize entire worlds in hours. The first Purge fleet arrived at the human colony of Orpheon 6. They did not offer surrender. They did not broadcast warnings. They simply began burning the planet from orbit. From Starfire 1, Reyes watched the transmission in silence. Cities turned into molten scars. Oceans boiled. The blue-green world became a choked wasteland in less than a day. When the feed ended, his voice was cold enough to freeze the air. "Send this to every human colony. Let them see what the Council has done. Let them know there is no turning back now." And so the war became something darker. It was no longer about survival. It was about vengeance. The next month, 3 more Purge fleets vanished without a trace. The Council never found the wrecks. Some said the Starfire fleet destroyed them. Others whispered about human Black Ops teams boarding them and turning their own weapons against them. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the message. If you burn our worlds, we will burn your fleets. In the council chamber, Vorith stared at the growing list of losses. Entire sectors were slipping from their control. Trade networks were collapsing. Even some alien worlds, long loyal to the council, were starting to question whether they had backed the wrong side. For the first time in his career, Vorith allowed himself a single, unspoken thought. If we lose, it will not be because they were stronger, but because they refused to break. The price of victory. The final battle was not planned in secret. It was not hidden in shadows. It was fought in the open, for the whole galaxy to see. The Council's last hope lay in high-orbit Fortress Chiron, a massive defense station the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons, shield generators, and fighter bays. Around it swarmed the remnants of their fleets, hundreds of ships gathered from every loyal world, forming a wall of steel and fire. If Chiron fell, the Council's command network would collapse. Without it, their fleets would be blind. Their armies would be leaderless, and their rule would end. But Chiron was built to be untouchable. No fleet had ever breached its defenses. Until now, the Starfire fleet emerged from the void in perfect silence. 40 ships, humanity's largest force since the war began, fanned out into formation. Their hulls bore the scars of countless battles, but their engines burned hotter than ever. On Starfire 1, Captain Elias Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes locked on the distant fortress. The weight of every lost colony, every burned world, and every life taken in this war pressed against him. But his voice was steady. This is where it ends. For them or for us. The opening strike was chaos. Human fighters dove straight into the swarm of council ships, breaking their formation with speed and precision. Solar lances carved through cruisers. Missile salvos exploded in blinding bursts, scattering debris like deadly rain. But Charon's defenses were brutal. Its cannons fired beams that could split a battleship in half. Its fighters poured out in endless waves. The void became a storm of light and death. On the Starfire 1, alarms screamed. Shields flared and cracked under the barrage. A glancing hit tore through the port engines of the Hammerfall, sending the human destroyer spinning out of control before it detonated. Reyes forced himself to look forward. Push through. We can't fight them ship by ship. The fortress is the target. The fleet closed in, but the price was high. Every kilometer toward Chiron meant more ships lost. The Aurora's spear vanished in a bloom of fire. The Vigilant Dawn was torn in two by converging beams. Each loss was another voice silenced, another crew gone. Finally, they reached the outer shield. Lance teams fire. Reyes barked. The solar lances unleashed their fury. Beams of focused light slammed into the shield, making it ripple and crack. But it held. Admiral Chen's voice came through the comms, sharp and urgent. We can't bring it down from here. We need to get inside its radius. It was suicide, but it was the only way. Reyes made the call. Starfire 1 and Vanguard Honor with me. All other ships, cover our advance. The two lead ships burned forward, slipping through the chaos as the rest of the fleet threw themselves into the Council's path. The void lit with sacrifices, ships deliberately ramming enemy cruisers, fighters drawing fire away from the lead assault. They broke through. The shield generators loomed ahead, massive towers rising from the fortress's surface. Reyes' crew targeted them one by one, unleashing the full power of the solar lance. The beams punched through the towers, detonating their cores in blinding explosions. The shield collapsed. All ships, full attack. Reyes ordered. The human fleet poured everything they had into Chiron. Missiles, railguns, lances. The fortress's armor buckled, its structure shuddering under the assault. But victory came at a cost. A council dreadnought, in a desperate final act, rammed the Vanguard's Honor, triggering a reactor overload. The explosion tore through the human formation, crippling several ships, including Starfire 1. Reyes staggered on the bridge as systems died around him. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. "Captain, we've lost engine control," his helmsman shouted. Reyes didn't hesitate. "Divert all remaining power to the lance. We finish this now." The Starfire 1 drifted toward the fortress, weapons charging for one last shot. Enemy fire ripped through its hull, tearing away entire sections of the ship. Reyes stayed in his chair, watching the targeting screen as the fortress filled it entirely.
"Fire," he said.
The final lance shot speared through Karen's core. The explosion that followed was like the birth of a star, a blinding light that swallowed the fortress and every ship too close to escape. When the light faded, Chiron was gone. And with it, the Council's rule. The galaxy erupted in chaos. Without Chiron, the remaining Council fleets scattered. Colonies declared independence. Worlds once loyal to the Council turned their banners to humanity in respect or in fear. But the price was carved deep into human hearts. Of the 40 ships that began the battle, only 12 returned. Entire crews were lost, and Starfire 1 never came home. Some say Reyes went down with his ship in the explosion. Others whisper that he escaped, his whereabouts unknown, watching from the shadows for the day humanity might need him again. On Earth, a monument was built, a single, towering spire of black steel, etched with the names of the fallen. At its base, a simple inscription. They crossed the line. We answered with fire. And across the stars, the message was clear. Humanity had paid in blood for its freedom, and no one would ever dare to take it again.